everybody, this is Gail and doing a new video. I posted one for week 2, but they went in and they changed the assignments on me, so I need to update my videos a little bit. That one has some stuff about DQs, so I left it for you, but we will talk about what assignments are coming this week. So Part A, the problem description, that's in week 1, we pushed that to week 2 because you're still working on your PICO and all of that. I think it was just a little bit soon in week 1 to make that due. Everybody was struggling, which I totally expect. This used to be due in week 2. So I like it being forwarded there. It just helps us both out. So for problem A description paper, I posted a student example and I believe also a template, and all of that still holds. The only thing that's different is that they have you actually put your PICO template on this assignment as well. So you're going to have, the first paragraph is background of the problem. This is where you're explaining with frequent in-text citations what the problem is. So again, you're not a content expert. No matter how many years you worked in the field, for the purposes of this assignment, you're not a content expert. So everything that you say is fact. If you say the sky is blue, you got to back it up with some evidence. So that's why you're citing very frequently. If your whole paragraph is from the same research article, from the same scholarly peer-reviewed research article, you can just cite once at the end of the paper. I really don't want you to use direct quotes. I want you to paraphrase and then cite. I want to know that you can look at the literature, analyze it, and then spit it out in your own words, and then give the author credit. So the background of the problem is the what. What is the issue and why does it deserve attention? The next are the stakeholders and the change agents, and there should be probably 10 of them at least, if not more. Always the patient, always the family, caregivers, partners. Start with that, and then go into the hospital or clinic administrators. If you have an IT department that's going to be impacted because you need a new program, if you're changing some type of the EMR, they're impacted. If you need trainers to train people that are going to be helping you with the project, educators, nurses, nursing assistants, if it involves the laboratory in any way, radiology, you have to include all those folks. And believe me, as soon as you think you know everybody that it's going to affect, as soon as you start talking about your project or you start implementing it, you're going to get a nasty email from somebody that you left out. And boy, I needed to know about this. This does this to me. You really needed to give me a heads up. So really try to be exhaustive with your list, even if you have to tell people that don't care. You'd rather that than blind somebody that does care. Then you have the PICO question itself. So you're going to write out your PICO question, which is a long, drawn-out, run-on sentence that has all those components in it somewhere. The next is what organizations are concerned about, may benefit from, or be affected by this proposal. So you can go on and think outside of the box a little bit. This is an evidence-based project that's implemented in your own population, but how could this potentially affect other people? Joint Commission's going to come along and, wow, that's a great idea. Or if you're a magnet hospital, wow, we're gonna talk about this. So you want to explore all of that in this area too. And remember, each one of these is a header. So your first header is the background, then the stakeholder change agents, then the PICO question, the purpose and project objectives. So when you write objectives, these always start with to measure the amount of BMI that can be changed by a balanced diet among and then let's say that another objective is to impact hemoglobin A1Cs in diabetic patients with BMIs, whatever, that are participating in this project. So these are all the objectives of what you're aiming for with your intervention. So these are all things that don't have to be in your PCOT. This is where you can kind of go outside the box a little bit and explore what other things this could possibly impact and change. So if you need to look up how to write objectives, you can Just Google that. We write objectives as educators. At the beginning of each of your modules, it has what the objectives are for the module. So that's what you're writing here. Also a purpose statement. It'll be similar to your PICO, but just make a purpose statement. And you can look those up on the internet too, how to write a purpose statement. So it says this is a restatement of the question providing focus. Measurements need to be taken before and after the evidence-based practice is introduced to identify the expected changes. Well, that is if your comparison group is retrospective data compared to post-intervention. Yeah, if you have two different groups that you're comparing at the same time, I believe there's one person, and it's not going to come to mind right now, but they have their intervention group that's going to get an additional type of medication, and then the comparison group just gets the traditional medication. So that in that time you're not using retrospective data. Let's see here. Providing supportive rationale that the problem or issue is important is an important one in healthcare. That's more of your evidence base, going back into why this needs to be done, why the intervention works. If you have local data from your population that says that there's a need, if you're doing this within a public health department and you're studying pregnant women and their levels of depression during isolation from the pandemic, then you should have some data saying that that is a problem, either from a county website or a national database that's already looked at this. And you can say, wow, you have to prove this is a problem. We're not going out there and doing an evidence-based project to see whether IV fluids help with dehydration. We already know that, right? So we want to tackle something that is relatively new, at least new in this population that you're working on. You want to say why this intervention should work. In the first paragraph, it's what is the problem, why is it a problem, and then coming down to supportive rationale, why does this intervention work, what's the evidence. Then on number 6, develop an initial reference list. So this is just your reference list like you have for any paper that you write. They kind of made it a whole header there, and all it is the reference list that you're using for your paper. It should grow with each successive paper. You only use in each reference list on each of these papers what you have in-text citations on in the paper to match up with. Don't just keep collecting references. If you don't use that reference in this paper, take it off the reference list. It has to have a correlating in-text citation. Okay, so then it says include the PICO template as an appendix. This is the new part of the assignment. We didn't used to do this. So there's a PICO template that you fill out. And in the normal order of papers, you have your cover sheet, and you have an abstract, but you're not going to do an abstract for this. You say that for the final paper. You have the body of your paper with all the different headers of each criteria for the assignment. Okay, so in this one, you'll have 5 criteria. Then you have your reference list, and then you have Appendix A, Appendix B, on down the road. So for your PICO template, that's going to be Appendix A. Just go into your APA 7th edition student example papers and look at how they set up an appendix. That is section A. They have your PICO template here. The search method directions is just because in this one they're thinking you haven't done your lit review table yet. So they're starting to tell you how to do a search. Well, I know you guys are kind of doing this at the same time because you're going to be doing the same week because we've doubled up and put week 1 into week 2. So that's just telling you how to do searches. So we're going to move on here into number 2 because these will both be due Wednesday night. So for this first part of the literature review, it used to just be a written paper, and now they have you turning in the table. So on the lit review, the first section of it due this week is the literature review table, which is this. And so this says it has various parts that you have to fill out on each of your articles. This says to find 12 current peer-reviewed journal articles, and I say 4 to 6. I think at this point in your lit review, if you're trying to just meet the criteria for this assignment and get 12 of them, you may be pulling stuff out that really isn't pertinent, that you really don't need to use. I think at this point, if you've collected 4 to 6 really good articles that really pertain to your project, then you're good to go. And I don't want to grade 12 of them, believe me. So 4 to 6 is fine. This is just the table. You don't need to give me an APA reference list in addition to that. because pretty much you're telling me in the table who the author is, the name of the article, all of that. That's what that is. And then coming up on next week is what the paper used to be, and that is a written narrative. And I'll have an example of this. It's a written narrative where you take each one of those 4 to 6 articles, and another reason you only want to do 4 to 6, because each of those in the table, now you have to convert into a paper here in week 3. So only do 4 to 6. So what you do in this is you're actually writing now a written paper where you address each article. You talk about the internal and external validity of each article and the strengths and weaknesses, but you have to write it out more in a narrative. Okay, so that is coming up in week 3, and I hope you guys aren't totally confused. I was confused for at least the first 3 weeks as I was trying to figure out what they did to my assignments. What did you guys do? So this is what we have, and you're building a paper. If you haven't already figured that out, each section goes into the final paper rather than going wham at the end, write a paper. Each week you'll write a paper. I give you feedback. You make any revisions, you hang on to that, and you start to build your final paper. Alrighty? So you're good to go. Thanks everybody for your hard work. Doing great in the discussion forums. All of that looks really good. It's substantive. You're meeting the 400 word count for the DQ answers and the 200 for the peer responses. That's great work. Your peer responses don't have to be referenced. It certainly makes it more interesting if they are. Because what you're trying to do is grow the body of knowledge of the classroom, right? There's pretty kind of just one, I don't know, flat class, and you go in there and you don't get to talk to anybody in real time, and you just have these things to read. So I see the peer responses as a way to take a different angle on it. So not everybody's posting the same thing. Find a word in there that or something that lets you go off on a different little angle, a little bunny trail, and help your peers learn more about the subject rather than just writing the same thing, everybody posting kind of the same topic over and over again. So that's my suggestion. I hope you guys have a great week and that you're doing well. The Lord's blessing you over and over again. So you guys take care. Call me if you need anything. Text me. And bye-bye.